Man of Medan is set almost entirely at sea on an enormous abandoned boat. Loosely based on the real-life ghost ship mystery of the OSS Orang Medan, Man of Medan is also the first part of Supermassive Games' proposed Dark Pictures anthology, a series of short, branching horror narrative experiences in the vein of its tremendous 2015 surprise hit Until Dawn. If you played Until Dawn, you'll know what to expect, but despite a smart online co-op mode, Man of Medan's weak narrative ultimately makes it a disappointing first installment. This is Jess McDonald standing in for reviewer James O'Connor.
Horrified, he looks closer to see the dead man's face in the dark. Closer. Closer. And he sees. It's his own face. And then its eyes bulge out and screams.
So gross.
Hey-oh, super twist.
Nice.
Nice one, Squire.
Man of Medan's plot jumps between 5 different playable characters who are all experiencing the same event. You'll determine their ultimate fates by making decisions for them, as well as responding to quick-time events. There are reportedly 69 different potential deaths you can experience, but it's also entirely possible that your whole crew will survive. Alternatively, they might all die. In conversations and at pivotal points in the plot, you'll often be given 3 options, one of which is always to say or do nothing. So focused is Man of Medan on its story, there are no puzzles to solve or combat systems to master outside of these choices. Just lots of exploring and quick-time events. However, the game is plagued by a big central problem, a fundamentally weak plot. The story isn't engaging since the player is given little reason to care about the characters, and the horror tropes being explored mostly feel hackneyed and uncreative. After a brief prologue scene set in the 40s, you spend Man of Medan's roughly 4-hour runtime in the present day. The story opens with the crew planning a dive to a previously untouched sunken fighter plane from World War II, which ultimately leads to a series of events that sees them trapped on the Medan. A seemingly haunted, abandoned ship, held captive by a pirate gang who are convinced that the ship, which is riddled with dead bodies, contains treasure. Naturally, things start going bump in the night, and the gang finds themselves dealing with various ghouls and terrors. There are plot holes and character inconsistencies throughout, some minor, some more blatant. It's easy to forgive the questionable presence of rats all over the boat, still gnawing on hunks of meat that have been on the ship since the 40s, but it's less easy to excuse how blasé the characters act about the horrifying situations they find themselves in. The dialogue is generally not very good either. At times, it successfully recreates the feeling of watching a fun but silly teen slasher, but it can also be annoying when the 5 central characters' interactions sound stilted and unrealistic.
Yeah, man, this whole rust bucket's one tetanus shot from the bottom of the ocean.
We already tried to escape, didn't exactly work out.
Without spoiling anything, the story explains a little too much about what's happening on the Medan in a way that makes repeated playthroughs much less satisfying. There's also an over-reliance on jump scares, which cheapens the horror experience. On the plus side, it looks tremendous. The character models can be a bit waxy, but the ship is extremely detailed and creepy, and the game effectively communicates how unpleasant the act of exploring a creaky rust bucket full of dark corners and rotting corpses must be.
You hear that?
If by that you mean the terrifying sound, then no, I didn't hear anything.
You know you did. Was it something moving?
Something moving would make that sound, sure.
The trade-off, at least on a base PS4, is that the animations frequently stutter, breaking the mood as frames slip away. There are pacing issues too, especially with the extremely slow opening section that weighs down repeat playthroughs. Multiplayer is Man of Medan's big addition to the formula laid out by Until Dawn. There are 2 forms of co-op: shared story, in which 2 players tackle the game together online, and movie night, where up to 5 players can play together offline, playing through the chapters of whichever characters they are assigned at the start. Playing together on the couch is perhaps meant to evoke that don't go in there feeling of watching a fun horror movie with friends, but death is more often down to a failed QuickTime event rather than a dialogue choice you made, or because you decided to investigate something spooky. In fact, right near the end, a mistimed button press can be the difference between everyone surviving and everybody dying. Being responsible for that in front of your friends is more embarrassing than it is funny. However, so many of the game's issues feel like much less of a problem when you jump into the smart and innovative online mode. Shared Story sees you both playing at the same time, taking control of different characters as their scenes play out simultaneously. You'll both eventually get a turn with every character, if they live long enough, and often your paths will diverge. In single player, you'll still see both scenes, but one will be greatly truncated. In online co-op, some of these scenes are expanded, or you might occasionally see parts of the story or make choices that cannot be accessed in single player. Working together in online co-op and choosing to reveal what just happened and when to let the other person try and figure out what we'd done in our scenes was a delight. No matter how much or how little you choose to share though, shared story is absolutely the right way to play the game. Being able to see how your friend is trying to direct a scene and deciding whether to help or hinder them in that is excellent. Man of Medan is still telling a weak story though, as much as shared story plasters over this with its excellent take on co-op. As a show of the potential for the Dark Pictures anthology, Man of Medan is largely a success, but as a first episode, it leaves plenty to be desired.
Oh, what the fuck? Don't touch it! Why did you touch it?